teacher, coach, dean, assistant principal, and principal, and has worked in the elementary, middle, and high school levels. He has a bachelor's degree in social studies education, a master's degree in administration and supervision, and a doctorate degree in educational leadership. His vision as superintendent has been and will continue to be to improve the ranking of our school district to the upper 1/2 of all the districts in the state in terms of student achievement. He and his wife Penny have 6 children and 10 grandchildren, so he definitely has a vested interest in improving the school system. It's my pleasure to present Rick Surrency.
It's our nature, our lifestyle, our community.
We are a family working together to inspire every student to think, to learn, to achieve, to care, to become a successful and responsible citizen.
We are a community of learners who encourage,
challenge, and support one another to meet our goals, and constantly refine our practice.
Employees are supported in their roles so they in turn can support our students. Our teachers are skilled,
supportive, and caring.
We believe and have high expectations for ourselves. We believe and have high expectations for each other.
As business and community partners, we are informed. We can share.
We feel like we are a part of the district.
Our voices matter.
we are a place where financial health is a priority.
Our community supports our schools.
And our schools sustain our community.
Though we have distinct goals, as principals we work together to align district and school goals. Together we have made unprecedented growth in student grades, graduation rates, and acceleration opportunities.
We are a place where students learn to think for themselves, to create, to experiment and tinker, and are not afraid to fail.
We believe that all students have the potential to graduate high school and have success in college and their careers.
our students are our future.
Future employees,
Future business leaders.
Future parents.
Our next generation.
I will be a teacher,
And offer officers.
a doctor, an honorary technician,
A wealthy.
a lawyer. I want to be a firefighter, paramedic.
I am the class of 1982.
Class of 1997.
Class of 2004.
I am the class of 2014.
I am the class of 2006.
The class of 2000.
I am the class of 1990.
Unwavering drive. We continue to prepare our students to compete in the world of tomorrow.
We have big dreams and even bigger goals. We are Putnam County Schools.
Thank you very much. I always like to open up with that because that kind of tells the whole story. Can y'all hear me okay? You almost hear me too well. But our staff actually at the school district put that together, and it took months to put that together, but I thought they did a pretty good job. Not only does that talk about our school system and what we're about, that's also a pretty good recruitment video for people moving to Putnam County. And we actually have used that in recruiting teachers. Just because it shows what we're about, shows our river, shows our people, and it shows that we grow students here to come back and get jobs here in Putnam County. So I'm really proud of that. I had a little funny story about we've hired some teachers. Actually, we had 54 new teachers that we hired this year, and we're still looking for some, but we've actually hired some teachers for the first time in a long time out of the United States. on some type of exchange program. And we have some teachers that, they can speak English, but sometimes they're not familiar with our local dialect. And we have one teacher that wasn't quite sure how to pronounce Palatka. And y'all have heard Palatka, Palataka, and you can imagine the number of ways. And this teacher said, she just wanted to find out from somebody local how to pronounce Palatka. So she figured she'd go to a local restaurant or local establishment and ask one of the locals, because the locals know how to say Palatka. It all comes natural to us. So she went to this place and found one of the local people there was working behind the counter, and she said, I need for you to tell me how to pronounce this place and say it very slowly so I can understand. So the person kind of looked funny, but he said, okay, I'll help you out since you're new to town. And he says, Burger King. So again, I don't think they know how to pronounce Palatka, but they got the Burger King down pretty good. But thank you for having me here. And before I proceed, I want to introduce my wife, Penny. She's back there eating right now. Penny, wave to her. Penny is a homegrown Putnam County girl, and I really married up. She's helps me out a lot. But I just want to talk about a few things that's going on in the Putnam County school system now. Things that you might have heard about, things that you might have questions about. And David, if I get too long, just do that and I'll cut it short. But I'm going to try to go through this pretty fast. But some things I think we can all be proud of. And over the last 2.5, almost 3 years, I think we've made some progress. And I want to highlight that because to me, this is about moving this district. But more than that, it's about helping our kids. And we can talk about numbers and all that, but it's really about making sure our kids have the best opportunity for the best education possible. And David Buckles is here, and David is a wonderful mentor of mine, serves on our school board, longtime superintendent, and I'll tell you, I couldn't do it without David. He's in my corner, and so many things that we've accomplished is because of David and the other board members. But let me talk first about probably one thing that we hear a lot about, school safety. And a year and a half ago, when the Parkland shooting happened, that devastated everyone, and it really made us as school personnel think, what, schools are and have been a soft target for people that are out to hurt somebody. And the sheriff and I, Sheriff Deloach, like the day after that shooting, he and I got together, we said, we've got to do something. We can't wait on the state to do it. We have got to do something for Putnam County. So actually the sheriff and I sat down and formulated a plan to actually put armed people in our schools. And if you remember, we actually started the Guardian program before the Guardian program was started by the state. We actually had our plan. And we introduced the plan. We actually had the Jacksonville news stations come out and interview us. We had a press conference. But it wasn't about us. It's about we needed immediately to act and make sure our kids felt safe and they were safe. So it was a long struggle, and Mr. Buckles can attest to it. A lot of people had a lot of concerns about school employees having weapons. But we could not afford, nor were there enough uniformed law enforcement officers to protect our children. So we formulated a plan, which eventually the state started that plan also, called the Guardian program, and we actually have implemented that after much discussion and public input. And I can tell you today, our kids are safer today than they've ever been because of the Guardian program. And the people that have been trained have received at least the same or more training than our deputies have. And I'm telling you what, we have signs up now saying if you come on our campus to hurt somebody, somebody's going to shoot you. Somebody's going to resist. And I've got, like I said, I've got kids and grandkids in the school. I want to make sure they're protected. I don't want somebody else from outside of Putnam County to tell me how to do it. So we're doing it, and we're on track. We've hardened our schools. We spent money to make sure we have single entry points. We've spent funds to make sure we've hired mental health people to make sure that they address a lot of these issues that kids have. Everything the state has asked us to do, we are doing it. And I'm telling you, the governor is serious about this. He's holding me as superintendent accountable, and our school board members, and the people who cannot work things out, the superintendents and the sheriffs who seem to fuss and can't come to an agreement. There's a grand jury out there, and if they can't get it done, somebody's going to be out of office, and he's already started making examples of people. So we're serious about that, and I'm holding people accountable to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do to keep our kids safe. And if you have any other questions about school safety, I'll be glad to answer that afterwards. Our graduation rates, you've probably heard about that. And again, since 2015, Putnam County has been one of the lowest ranking districts in the state as far as graduation rates. By the way, a graduation rate is measured by the number of students who start 9th grade, who finish 12th grade and graduate on time. That's within 4 years. That is the denominator, okay? The number who actually finish is a numerator. So it's a rate, it's a percentage. In 2015, in Putnam County, 1 out of every 2 kids who started 9th grade graduated on time. 1 out of every 2, or 54.9%. We put some things in place, and again, it's not magic, it's actually making sure kids don't fall through the cracks. It's making sure we have some early warning signs. It's making sure that counselors and teachers have those relationships to make sure kids are not forgotten and they're not a number. Every kid is precious to us. We want to make sure they graduate on time and have a future. So we put some things in place, and we have everybody working behind this. And the next year, after 2015, the graduation rate went up to 63%. The next year, in 2017, it went up to 72%. And last year, in 2018, it went up to 84.8%. And this year, 2019, we've already projected it. It has not been published yet, or hasn't been announced yet, but we pretty much stay on top of the numbers. And when it's released in December, we are projecting Putnam County to be right at 90%. 90%. Now, what does that mean? That means that starting now, for every 10 kids that start 9th grade, 9 of them are going to graduate on time. That sounds a lot better than 1 out of every 2, doesn't it? So we've made tremendous gains, and actually Putnam County over that period of time has grown more in the graduation rate than any other district in the state of Florida. We've had the highest growth, and that says a lot for the people of Putnam County. And I will say this, again, I want to brag a little bit, but Putnam County is getting national attention because of our increase in graduation rates. I believe November, I've been invited to fly out to San Diego, and I'm actually going to speak to a group of national superintendents to talk to them about Putnam County and how our graduation rates have improved. So again, that's a tremendous honor for our district, where people around the nation are seeing what's going on. So I'm very proud of that. Let me talk just a minute about our career and technical programs. That's another very important thing for our graduates. When our kids graduate, if they don't have somewhere to go or something to do, what have we done? We provide kids opportunities to go to college. You know, we have the Cambridge program, we have the collegiate high schools where kids can dual enroll and really they can get their AA degree by the time they graduate. So we have a lot of college track programs. But again, Putnam County needs programs where kids can get certifications and get jobs. We want kids to get jobs. You saw in the video, I want to be a so-and-so. I want this job. So we want kids to go to work, pay taxes, pay our salaries, take care of us, okay? We want to make sure they have those high-skill, high-demand jobs, high-paying jobs. So what we've done in the last 3 years is we've gone outside of Putnam County and received funding to start up some of these new programs that are meeting some of the job demands of our district. The first one we did was our advanced manufacturing. We partnered with Georgia Pacific Georgia Pacific actually has given us over $120,000 in cash to buy equipment so we could start this program where kids could go to work at GP, at Seminole, have a highly skilled technical job, kind of like a millwright. But these are millwrights on steroids, if you will. These are millwrights who can actually fix a machine when it breaks. Very computerized, very highly technical jobs. But that is going on now in all three high schools, specifically Palaca High School. And these are jobs for the future. When these kids get out of high school, they can go to work at GP and make a lot more money than they otherwise could. So that's advanced manufacturing, and we actually received a state appropriation of $250,000 to help buy equipment to start that program. This past year, we received another appropriation from the state of Florida to start yet another high demand career program, and that is the Public Service Academy. And these are jobs like firemen, EMTs, policemen. By the way, policemen or deputies are hard to find these days after the shooting. It's a very high demand job. 911 operators, teachers. These are the kind of jobs that we receive funding, and we're starting that academy this year in all three high schools. So when these kids graduate high school, they can have a job, going to work in any of those occupations. This year also, we are starting a new program which is very highly technical, which is a high demand job. It's called cybersecurity. I don't know if you've read in the paper, but we've had a number of cities here in Florida who have been hijacked or their data has been stolen. And you've heard of things like ransomware and that type of thing. That's the thing now. There are criminals out there stealing data, and cities and counties and that type of thing are having to pay a ransom to get the data back. I know Lake City had to pay, Terry, how much? $500,000 or something? 400,000. So we are training people, and we actually took a group out to Denver, Colorado this summer, and we received free training, free curriculum from the Department of Homeland Security to train people in Putnam County, to train our students to be able to get jobs to combat that. We hear about the Russians and all that. Cybersecurity is happening right here. And if people can get their hands on data and steal it, it's worth millions of dollars. So we're training our young people for jobs that may not even be created yet. These are jobs that private industry are hiring to protect their security. So that's another area that we're starting. The kids who are gamers that love to play Fortnite and all that, these kids are going to be high demand because they have those skills that they need to work in these kind of jobs. So that's the thing that's on the horizon now. I want to say something else. 2 years ago, Putnam County Schools, we have 18 schools in our district. 11 of those schools were on the state's improvement list, the naughty list, which means if they were a D or an F school, they were in turnaround status, which meant the state was visiting those schools. They told them if they didn't turn the grades around, we would possibly have to close them or turn them over to an outside entity. So we had 11 schools on the bad list, if you will, because of their school grades. Well, 2 years ago, because of some of the efforts of our district and our schools, we were able to take 8 of those 11 schools off the list. They made a C or higher on their school grade, which is fabulous. And those schools would not be kind of watched over real closely by the state. This past year, the last 3 schools that were on that list finally came off the list. So I'm proud to say for the first time in about a dozen years, we don't have any schools left on the state's improvement list. One of those schools you probably heard of is Mosley Elementary. In Mosley, we actually had to turn that school over to an external operator, an outside company, if you will, to come in and help manage the school. But because of that, we've established a lot of teaching practices at that school that we're able to use in other schools. So really, it's going to benefit us in the long run. And we've had to spend a lot of money to do that. But because of that, Mosley Elementary has made a C and is no longer on that list. So I'm very proud. Another important thing we've done to take care of our employees. You know, teaching's hard. It's hard to find teachers. It's very difficult to recruit teachers. And when you hire them, a lot of times they leave. They go to a neighboring county that pays more money. Or sometimes they get so worn out from teaching or they have a bad experience, they just go do something else. So we're very much in tune to that. We've done a couple of things to try to recruit teachers and to keep them here. Number one thing is we've started a program called Novice Teacher Mentors, where we actually have teachers that do nothing but work with new teachers. And they help support them, they help them with their classroom management. And with that support, those teachers stay around. You know, they feel supported, they're much stronger. So that's an innovative program that we're doing. And you know, another thing that we've done this past year is we gave our teachers the first across-the-board raise of 3% in the first time since the Great Recession in 2008. And that's because, thank you. And I'm really proud of that, not because of anything else, but our teachers deserve that, and all of our employees. And David Buckles, thank you for, the board did that. And it was with a lot of sacrifice. We've had to do a lot of cutbacks. We had to do a lot of things to be good stewards of our money, but we wanted to make sure that the money that we spent on employees was being used to better our students. And also the state helped us out this time with funding, so I'm very proud of the fact that we're able to give our teachers a raise for the first time in a long time. We're also bidding out our health insurance for the first time in a while. And again, we're doing that to try to get the best insurance rates we can for our employees. A couple of things I want to mention before I finish is one important thing that we're doing to help kind of deal with the teacher shortage is we have found a grant for $400,000 that our district was awarded this past year. It's called a distance learning grant. And this is really cool. And you'll see some more information about it, but we have, in all of our high schools, we have some equipment. It's like a giant TV screen where it's like a conferencing, video conferencing. But now we have the capability, and we've actually started it this year, where a teacher at one high school can be teaching. He or she is on a camera, can be seen on a big screen, and students in another high school are sitting in another classroom and can actually be taught by that same teacher. Now we have an employee sitting there supervising them, but we have a highly effective teacher teaching two classes at the same time with this video conferencing equipment. And we have that in all 4 high schools now. Not only does that help us with our teacher shortage, it also helps us if we have a really highly effective teacher, we can have that teacher in place and impact him more than just a classroom of teachers. So we'll keep you in tune with that. We'll put out some more information. But that's a distance learning grant, and we are one of few counties in the state of Florida that are doing that right now. And not only are we doing that with students, we can actually train teachers. We can bring them to our high schools, local high schools. They can sit in a classroom, and a trainer in one high school can train them, and those teachers don't even have to get into a car to drive over there. We don't have to pay mileage. So they can sit in that room and interact. It's just like they're sitting with them, but it's on a big video screen. So I'm really excited about that. Finally, we are really focused on growing our kids from pre-K to 12th grade. And some of our data we've gotten back is our kids from kindergarten to 2nd grade are really struggling with things like phonics and other reading skills. By the time they get to 3rd grade, if they're not reading on grade level, they could possibly be held back. So our focus this year is we are really spending a lot of time with those early grades, and even with pre-K. You know, we've talked about the brain builders and our pre-K program with Lift Putnam and all that, but we, in the classrooms, kindergarten through 2nd, we're spending a lot of our resources making sure those kids are ready when they get to third grade. Because if they're not ready in third grade, if they're not on reading level in third grade, the chances of them graduating as seniors on time is greatly diminished. So our graduation rate initiative to help improve our graduation rates doesn't just start in high school, it starts in early grades. So this is a long-term process, if you will. We're not just turning Putnam County around now and then going about our business. We are trying to build sustainable improvement over many years. My goal is to prepare our students where they can get high-paid jobs, high-demand jobs, where they can stay in Putnam County. Matter of fact, you probably saw where we had the Product of Putnam initiative. We are recognizing people who graduate from our high schools and come back and get a job and serve in Putnam County. And we're going to start doing that each year. But this is a long effort. It's going to take years. We were number 67 in the state, and that didn't happen overnight either. And it's not going to happen overnight for us to get in the upper half of the districts in the state. But I think we're off to a good start. I'm very excited. I am running for election next year, and I'm saying that because it's important that we maintain our leadership and the resources we have in place now if we're going to have a long-term effect. And I ask for your support in helping me to do that and help push Putnam County to heights where we've never been before. So thank you for having me, and this time I'll field any questions. Yes, ma'am. You got the questions there? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna have to split this. Okay. First of all, somebody wanted to point out that Browning Pierce Elementary School progressed from a D to a C, just 1 point shy of a B rating.
Yeah, that's to be celebrated. So Browning Pierce is, they were one of the last 3 schools, so they are definitely making great gains, and we're expecting to be this year.
Yeah. Okay. What is the plan to improve the early childhood literacy program?
And that's kind of what I referred to a minute ago. We've actually, through the Northeast Florida Educational Consortium, we are working with neighboring districts to really focus on a lot of those early learning skills, especially phonics. That's been an area that we really need to work on. You know, we've gotten away from kids really being able to sound out words and to read, you know, kind of like we were used to, you know, taught to read. So we're having to regroup and restudy the way we did that. So there's a lot of focus now on those early years.
Okay, what motivated putting the Cambridge classes at Kelly Smith? It seems it has hurt the Cambridge program at James A. Long. Do the number of students and the Cambridge program at both schools indicate that there is an increased demand for the program, enough of a demand to fill the Cambridge classes at both schools?
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you asked that. You know, one of our initiatives has been to expand our acceleration programs. Cambridge is an acceleration program designed for those kids who are really highly motivated, high achievers, if you will. And we had, you know, the elementary school at James A. Long was our Cambridge Center for elementary students. And as you know, Q.I. Roberts Junior Senior High is our Cambridge High School. The reason Kelly Smith was chosen as a second Cambridge site was because we did a test. It's called a COGAT test, which is a predictor, and we administer that to students across the county. And the students that live in the Kelly Smith area showed a higher probability of being successful in an accelerated school. So again, that was objective data. We just didn't say, hey, we like Kelly Smith, we like the people that live out there, let's put it out there. It was based on objective data. So we are doing that really for the idea of giving people more choices. They can go to Kelly Smith, they can go to James A. Long, and both schools have a large number of Cambridge students. But again, it's to provide choices for our students.
Okay. How are the teachers chosen to be Cambridge teachers?
They apply like other teachers do, and like with any teachers these days, they have to provide data. They have to show data where they have been successful in the past. And we call it value added, the value added model. It basically is a measure to show that teachers have helped students to improve over the past. So it's a very objective measure, and principals are very good at selecting those teachers because they want to make sure they're putting the best teachers in front of those students.
Why are students who are perpetual classroom disturbers allowed to continue returning to class after suspension? Why aren't they removed from class until they have been taught proper classroom behavior and sign a contract to behave?
Okay, that's a loaded question. And classroom misbehavior and classroom management, all that is important. And when students misbehave, it's about changing behavior. It's not about punishment. It's about whatever we do when a kid misbehaves. It's about having some type of intervention that will help teach that student to have better behavior. Now, there are different things that kids can do. If they have a serious infraction, it might lead to suspension or even expulsion. But normal classroom misbehavior is on a progressive type plan where we try to teach the student how to behave in class, and the more they misbehave, then the consequences are more severe. But it's all an educational process, because bottom line, we are all held accountable for making sure these kids are successful. And when they can't, after much intervention, they can't be successful, then our school board will remove them from the school district. Yeah.
What is your position on 18-year-old sealed records being used to identify violent kids?
Well, again, I'm about protecting our public, and again, if law enforcement, whatever they need to do to get access to records to make sure that a student is not a threat to our other students or to society, I'm all for it. But I'm also for making sure that privacy rights and privacy laws are respected. So it's a fine line between privacy and protection of our students.
But sir, what was your position?
My position on that is I want to make sure that whatever we need to do to protect our students will take place. I'm all about protecting our students.
If you have a violent student, a person who has been robbery, molesting, any number of violent crimes, they turn 18 and that record's closed. The high school in Miami down there in that area where they had the school shooting, those records have been made public. And I'm a strong believer in the Second Amendment. What is your opinion about violent crimes being released?
Sir, I'm about law enforcement having the information they need to make sure those people are not on the streets to harm our children or to harm the public. So whatever the law enforcement needs to do to be able to get that information.
How do you help substitute teachers who don't have the teacher training to be better as substitute teachers?
Yeah, being a substitute teacher is a very difficult job because you're walking in there and you really don't have those relationships with kids. We do have training for our substitute teachers, but again, we ask our regular teachers to make sure they have, good lesson plans for those substitute teachers, and we do provide a certain amount of classroom management training, because when you put them in there, they have to have a certain amount of skill to survive in some of those classes. So it's very difficult. That's a very tough job.
Okay. Why do recent graduates not know how to spell, punctuate, and use correct grammar? Why do high school students and graduates know so little about our Constitution and Founding Fathers? I can answer that.
Well, let me go back to the literacy part, and you're absolutely right. I think our students have gotten so geared to texting and talking on computers and all that, we've gotten away from writing and actually teaching them the English language. And I believe our state is going back to, we're assessing writing now. We got away from it, but we're assessing that now. They need to be able to read and to write. And we've turned out students that, I'll be honest with you, that we need to do a better job in improving their communication skills. So again, we are now focused on making sure kids write as much as possible now, and that has not always been the case. And being a former history teacher, I am right there with the Constitution and teaching them the Bill of Rights and making sure they understand the laws of the land. And I agree with that too. I mean, in order for them to have written communication, they also need to be able to have oral communication. If these kids are going to go out and interview for a job or talk when they get hired, if they get hired, to be able to communicate effectively, that is a skill. And those skills are also being taught in our schools. But again, that's something we've gotten away from, and we need to make sure we teach those soft skills. It doesn't matter how smart they are, if they can't communicate properly by writing or speaking, then we're doing them a disservice. But I am all about upholding the Constitution, because if we get away from that, the whole fabric of our country is gonna, come apart. So I'm a big believer in supporting and maintaining the ideas of our U.S. Constitution.
Okay, before I ask you, Before I ask you this next question, I will explain to the person that asked the question, Rick Surrency is not a Democrat.
That's right.
Okay. The Democrats are pushing the LGBT training in the schools as part of the curriculum to school children. You are a Democrat. What is your opinion of this agenda?
I think some things, and thank you for asking that, and I'm not a Democrat, by the way. But I will say there are some things that should be taught in home, taught at church, taught outside the school. The school cannot teach every little thing that And as our families have been disjointed over the years, a lot of that has gotten away. A lot of those things that families should be teaching and things they should talk about in the home. The schools, there are certain things that schools do not need to deal with. We have a lot of things on our plate. Matter of fact, there's a list of about 20 required things that the state requires us to teach that I can't even give you the list right now. But anything of that nature needs to be taught in the home and not in the school.
Okay, where does the ongoing apathy towards Edge High School come from, and why can't the school board support anything that helps our kids?
Okay, and I'm just going to speak in general about the charter schools, okay? And let me just say this, and Mr. Buckles is here. Our school board is a firm believer, as I am, in choice, giving students choice in charter schools, which is also supported by the state, is an example of school choice. I'm a firm believer in our 3 charter schools. They provide a different type of learning for our students, and I support that. And I do not, as much as anybody thinks, I do not go out there and say anything that's derogatory about either of our 3 charter schools, because I believe they meet a certain need of our population. Now, there are other charter schools that have the opportunity to come in that are for profit, if you will, and to me that's a different thing altogether. But these are 3 locally managed charter schools. We provide support for them. The student achievement data from those schools are reflected in our data, so I have an inherent interest in making sure they are successful and they meet the needs of our students. By the way, those students that go to those schools are Putnam County students. They just aren't some students from another planet. They belong to us, and I want to make sure they get the best education possible. So I want to make it very clear, I am not anti-charter school at all. We are about helping charter schools to help themselves, but I do expect them to be financially responsible, meet their obligations. They have to pay their bills like we do. So I expect them to do exactly that. And if they're not serving or meeting the needs of our students in a manner that meets the charter, then our school board will hold them accountable. So that pretty much, addresses that question.
Okay, I think you've pretty well answered this one, but is there another special project or any other special projects that you haven't talked to us about tonight that you're going to do this year?
Yeah, we're averaging about a special project a year, I think. But the main thing I want to be careful about, this is not always about starting new projects. That doesn't always get the job done. The things that we're doing now, I want to get better at. And I think sometimes we can get strung out so far, overextended, that we're not doing a good job on some of those initiatives that we're doing now. It's all about making sure kids learn. And if we get too many things going, we're losing sight of the most important thing, and that is our children learning. But if we see an opportunity where we can bring in another way of helping kids, then we're going to listen to it. But I'm not always about just starting something new just because it's new. It has to meet our criteria of making sure it's serving the needs of our kids.
Okay, these other two I'm going to combine. Now we're on political. Why did you change your party affiliation to Republican, and what Republican values do you have?
Thank you for asking. I just knew that question was going to be asked. And I'll just say this. When I was elected, I was a Democrat. I've been a Democrat all my life. But when I was elected, sometimes you can find out a lot about yourself when you're placed in a certain situation. And I found out, the number one thing that I looked at myself is, how good of a steward am I, or we as a school district, with the resources of our citizens? And one of the most important things we did as a district was to make sure that we weren't just spending money frivolously just because it was there. I went in and I became very conservative minded as far as the resources of our school district. So to answer your question is, a lot of the values, especially the values of our resources, of making sure we have law-abiding students, to make sure we are protecting students, to make sure that we are held accountable and we are responsible for the safety of our students, and we're also held accountable for the resources that we are endowed with. I just felt that the values I hold as a elected official align more with Republican values. I'm very much about abiding by the law, our Constitution, and people being personally responsible for themselves as a citizen and making sure they're doing the right thing as a citizen in this county. And so those are some of the values I have. And a lot of the things that our Democrats have stood for, about government taking care of everything and raising taxes and all that stuff. I'm about, this country is great and this county is great because of people who have taken the initiative to do the things that have made us great. And whatever I can do to support people in that effort and to help our students be the best they can, that's what I'm all about. So I hope that answers that question. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and it's a privilege to be here. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I am from Puerto Rico, but I am an American citizen.
Amen.
I am 99 years old.
Bless your heart.
But one thing, I read everything in the papers about Putnam people. They are so important to read. We have to pray for the school system, starting within all the people that have it, all the teachers, all the people working in the school, in the buses, the parents, and most important, the children. We have to pray for them and for the school system. It is a miracle. The system here is so wonderful, not like Puerto Rico when I was 90 years ago. So thank you. You are doing a very good job. The school is doing a very good job, but we have to be praying, praying, praying.
I need a campaign manager. I need somebody with your pizzazz to help me out. Let me just say this, and thank you for saying that. Another important value is we put God first. Even though the government says we can't, if students want to worship God or pray to God, they're allowed to do that. Even though we can't lead it, but we're about, the way we're going to make our life better is putting God first and our country second. So thank you for that, and God bless you.